Yo, what's up guys? Teacher Paul up here, and today we have a coffee request. If you want to request a video, click over here or buy me a coffee, link is in the description. And thank you so much for the coffee. Thank you guys for the support. Today's coffee comes from Cecilia, and Cecilia says, "Hi Paul, so you have asked a few times about the Nordic flags. I have here a video about the Danish flag and the legend of how it came to be." This is a video from the channel called History with Hilbert. And right off the bat, I like the fact that the first frame of the video is actually over here, Brazil. So pretty cool, huh? Okay, let's go.
On this channel, I've made a lot of videos about flags and flags that have changed over time. This includes a few on Scandinavian flags, like the Finnish flag and the Norwegian flag. But one that's slightly
Oh, you've done the Norwegian flag as well. I haven't seen that one yet.
One that's slightly conspicuously missing from this list is the Danish flag. The reason for this is that the Danish flag is the oldest continuously used flag in the world. And so it doesn't really make sense to talk about what used to be the Danish flag because, well, the current Danish flag pretty much is the oldest Danish flag.
Okay.
But this
Wait, it
week,
never
I was
changed?
in Tallinn in Estonia, where I completely accidentally stumbled upon the very interesting story of how the Danish flag came to be. And this is traced back to a legend from 1219. Although it should be mentioned that we only have an account of this dating from 1523, the account given by Christian Pedersen. Now, this is a very interesting story, and let's look back at Danish history to understand a bit more about where the flag came from. We know that Harald Bluetooth around the 970s erected the Yelling runestone, in which he claimed to have united Denmark and converted them. And several centuries later, by 1191, the once pagan Danes were now fully Christianized and going on crusade themselves. They weren't going all the way to the Holy Land, or at least not at this point, but simply across the Baltic Sea, where in the Baltic states of Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia today, there were still pagans. In the early 1200s, the Danes were ruled over by King Valdemar II. He ruled over a powerful kingdom that was a lot larger than the present-day state of Denmark, expanding into parts of what are today Sweden and Germany, as well as further along the southern shore of the Baltic Sea. Now, at this time, the main effort to convert the peoples in the Baltic was being led by German-speaking knights, and they had formed together into a group called the Livonian Order. However, by the early 13th century, they were hard-pressed, and they were having a hard time fighting against the pagans in the Baltic states. And so they asked the Pope, Honorius III, to invite King Valdemar II of Denmark to lead their efforts with a fresh Danish army to conquer the Baltic lands and convert them to Christianity. And Pope Honorius did this by elevating the invasion of Valdemar into a full-blown crusade against the inhabitants of the Baltic lands. And so this became one of the Northern Crusades.
Okay.
It began in the year 1219, and a large Danish fleet made their way to present-day Estonia, where at the site of the capital of Tallinn, there was a fastness, a fortress that had been built by the native people. And it's here that the Danes attempted to convert the local people, who at first seemed to be interested in taking them up on that offer. A great feast was arranged on the hilltop, and all seemed to be going well. But then the pagans drew their weapons and ambushed the Christians, who had been unsuspecting of anything going wrong. And at this point, the battle began. The Danes had help in the form of Bishop Sunesson, who, seeing that the Estonians were attacking, lifted his arms in prayer. And each time that he lifted up his arms, it seemed that the Danes were more willing to go forward and surged forward into an attack to meet the enemy head on.
He had a lot
But he was an elderly man, and his arms easily grew tired. So when his arms fell, the Estonians got the
lot of
better hand
influence.
once again and started to kill the Danes and push them back towards the edge of the cliff. Feeling that a disaster was near, Sunesson and Valdemar both prayed that there would be a sign from the Lord that he was with them and to save them from disaster. And just at that moment, when all hope appeared to be lost, floating down from the sky was a magical banner, a red field upon which was emblazoned a white cross. This fell and Valdemar picked it up, and suddenly he knew that he had the power to defeat the enemy in battle.
Where did that come from?
Rallied and fought bravely, and so the Estonians were defeated and they had the victory that day.
No, that can't be true, can it?
For the Christian cause in the crusade, surging forward with their new banner, the red and white banner that we now all know as the Danish flag.
It does sound like a
Danish,
legend.
it is called the Dannebrog. It is the Danish flag, and this is the origin story that is attributed to it.
Dannebrog.
And pretty much ever since then, this has been the flag that we associate with the
That doesn't
Danish
sound
kingdom,
like a
the
real
Danish people.
story.
The battle.
Do you guys believe that, or is that just like folklore? Or I don't even know if I'm using that word correctly. But it sounds like something that is like from a song, right? It sounds like a story rather than like actual history. Like the flag came from above. Like who made that flag? Where did it come from? Who designed it? There's so many questions.
That has become known in history as the Battle of Dannebrog.
It is just a legend?
Much debated, however. And as I mentioned, that account only comes in from much later. It's also sometimes called the Battle of Valdemar, so being named after the Danish king. Now, an interesting side note that I did not know is that this battle was actually fought at the site of present-day Tallinn, the capital of Estonia.
We've got to go up these stairs first. There's quite a few of them, but at the top is a special place. If I didn't break my neck first. Here we are, so backdrop.
Yo, he looks so young for his voice.
Church tower. We are at the place, of course, the church and the city itself wasn't there back in the early 1200s. But here, commemorated by this absolute unit of a Danish king with a pretty interesting sword, and of course the shield, the Dannebrog, and also the shield of Tallinn as the city to commemorate. This is the place where the Dannebrog allegedly fell from the sky. It is at this spot, also it is claimed.
So is this well known? Like everybody knows this story?
Down. So imagine none of these cobblestone walls here. Some kind of hill fort, probably wooded area, and then as the battle is going against the Danes, this flag flies down, this red flag with a white cross on it, and it leads Valdemar and the other Danes to victory. And there we can see written here in Estonian
Good evening,
first,
Marie.
and we've got in English for the tourists, in Danish, of course, because this is important for the Danes, and finally
So even
Russian,
Norwegians know
which
the
is spoken
story.
by, I believe it's around a third
So it's well
of
known.
the population of Estonia. So there we are, quite the spot, perfect to visit if you are in Tallinn. It's a little way up. I think I'm gonna have a nice.
No, I had
refreshing
never
pint
heard of this
in the
one.
sun. A little museum in there that you can visit. The ticket gives you access to several of these.
The thing is, I didn't even know that Denmark only had one flag. He said the flag, this is the oldest flag, and it never changed, which is very rare for a country not to change their flag, right? That is so awesome to have one flag. It's like Coca-Cola having only one brand, even though I do think it rebranded many times. But what I'm saying is that it's like one of the strongest brands, having like the same thing throughout years and years. This has been the Danish flag since the beginning, and it has been there for, what is it, 900 years? Almost 800 years? 800 years, right?
Towers, and the great thing about Tallinn is that it still has many of the walls from the Middle Ages. Most cities from the Middle Ages were walled, but most of them were torn down as walls became obsolete in the advance of gunpowder some would get different kinds of fortifications, others would just be torn down because they needed the space for the rapidly expanding populations that came. But luckily Tallinn still has its medieval walls, which gives it a really nice feeling.
A fun aside that I learned as well was that the name Tallinn actually comes from this event and its Danish history, because Tallinn is actually a contraction for the older Estonian name Tallinna, which of course Estonian is a Finnic language, so it's often very difficult indeed for me to understand or try and speak. But the etymology of this actually means Danish fortress. Now, in current Estonian, the word linna or lin means city, but originally and still, as I found out in Finnish, the word lin means fortress. So it's a bit similar to the Germanic word burg, for example, or now I guess borough, which is usually thought to be denoting a city, but it used to denote a fortress.
Okay, let's see what you guys are saying. It is known that the flag fell from the sky in battle, but as a Norwegian, I did not hear the whole legend. It is the oldest flag in the world that is still used. Amazing. Yeah, I had no idea about that. It is the world's oldest continuous used flag. I don't remember exactly which flag is older, but hasn't been used for this entire time. Yeah, so it's the oldest used flag.
But the Tani part relates back to Danish. So this is the Danish fortress, Tallinna, which then becomes contracted to Tallinna or Tallinn, which is rather interesting. And actually, the name of the battle of Lindannisse actually is the same, but switched around. So fortress Dane at that point, but across two languages. So I thought that was really interesting, actually, and something I hadn't realized before looking at this story and kind of connecting the dots together a little bit. But how much of this story is actually true? I mean, did a Danish flag really fly down from the sky during the middle of this battle? Probably not. If you're a skeptic like me, that seems rather unlikely. But there probably is some truth to the idea that this banner became associated with the Danes whilst they were on crusade in the Eastern Baltic. And so several other options come to us. This was much discussed by Danish historians during the National Romantic period, so in the 19th and 20th centuries. One of those to discuss it was Adolf Ditlev Jørgensen, and he thought that it was actually going back to 1218, and that the banner was down to Bishop Theodoric, who had been advocating Danish involvement in these Eastern Crusades for some time, and that actually the banner was the one that was worn by the Knights Hospitaller rather than by the Danes, but as the Danes were also fighting alongside them, and he indeed had this banner too, that this banner then became associated with the Danes, and so it stuck. Another theory put forward by Lawrence Pere Fabricius was that it was not dating back to the Battle of Lindannisse in 1219, but rather to a different battle fought in 1208, the Battle of Fellin instead, based on this being the banner of an archbishop that was present there, and then it became confused with the Danes. Another slightly related theory put forward by Helge Brun was that this actually fits in with a medieval topos, this kind of trope, if you will, of flags or symbols, especially crosses, appearing in the sky before decisive battles and then leading people to victory. So of course this happens at the Battle of the Milvian Bridge. We have this happening in 1217 at the Battle of Alcázar in Spain against the Moors. And as I discussed in my video about the Scottish flag and the history of the saltire, it's also the legend that the Picts, after converting, had seen this cross in the sky, this St. Andrew's cross in the sky, and then adopted it as their symbols to help defeat their enemies. So this is something we see frequently during the Middle Ages. So it's quite possible
the only thing it kept was the blue.
One or more of these theories may have been true, that they became associated with a white cross and a red background because of the Hospitallers, or because of other archbiscopal banners that were being used in the Crusades, and then that became associated with the Danes, who were also the main driving force in this period on these Crusades, and that this then merged with a kind of legendary story of a cross in the sky. We first start to see the Danish flag being used from around the mid 14th century. So here, this is a book actually from the modern day Netherlands that was produced around this time. And here we see for Denmark that they are using both the Danish coat of arms, which actually has a very interesting Frisian connection, which I'll get into in another video, but also now the Dannebrog, the white cross on the red background. So that shows that already around a century after the purported events, we have an attested use of this flag. So that makes it quite old.
Pretty cool.
Now, from 1398, we actually get the first...
On the top of the do you call those a horn, or don't know? It looks like it's a peacock, doesn't it? Is there any... I don't know. Don't know if it is a peacock, but anyways.
Tested use of this flag. So that makes it quite old. Now, from 1398, we actually get the first Danish example, which is here on a seal. We can see in the center the lion holding an axe, which is a very Norwegian-looking symbol. We have several lions, and then clasped in their claws, they are holding a flag with a cross on it. So we presume that that also is the Dannebrog that we are seeing there. And really, ever since, this has been the flag of Denmark that we've always associated with it. It's an incredibly important moment because
so every other Nordic country copied Denmark's
Finland,
flag?
most likely also Norway, Iceland, the Faroe Islands, and several other places likely drew heavily on the inspiration of this form of cross. Interesting too, of course, is that it is a Nordic cross, so it is offset slightly rather than being directly in the center.
Nice.
So the Danish flag is the oldest continuously used flag in the world, and I thought that deserved a video by itself, especially because I happened to stumble upon that little stairwell in Tallinn, in the old town, on the it's called the Dom Hill, the Doom Hill, the Church Hill, and I read this story and I thought, wow, that's incredibly interesting. Let's make a video about it. So I hope this has been interesting to learn a little bit
very
about
interesting.
the Danish flag and a little bit of Estonian history at the same time. I might see if I can make an Estonian flag video.
Okay, guys, go check out the full video, or if you want to watch the video without my commentary, the link is in the description. So thank you so much, History with Hilbert. That was very informative. Kari says, language is really interesting as a source of history. The coin has what today is known as the Swedish 3 crowns for some reason. Okay, yeah, that's a video in itself about how the... It's interesting how people decide what's going to go on the notes or the coins. That's something interesting as well, because money has a lot of history in it. Everyone wants to copy a good design. Okay, so what he said was that it had a strong, heavy influence. Let's not use the word copy. I know I used the word copy, but don't want to offend anyone. But yes, probably there was an inspiration, because all the Nordic flags kind of look the same, at least in terms of the concept. Just the colors change, right? But I'm sure that somebody more knowledgeable will come and say, hey, this is, it's actually, it might look similar, but it's very different because of this and that. So thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you will enjoy the reactions here on the channel. So don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you want to do like Cecilia did and request a video, just go over to Buy Me a Coffee. Link is in the description or the pinned comment. Go over here, click this button, or click over here for the playlist. And I'll see you on the next one. Take care now. Bye-bye.